Oh, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the MPJ Musical People Rock Album Review Shows, where we review the latest rock albums. If you've not heard this before, if you're tuning in, welcome to my crew today, to Trish, to Chris, and to Ian.
Morning.
Welcome, everybody.
Hello.
So, apologies for my poor dulcet tones and my head cold, but we shall soldier on. Hence, if I mute myself and forget I'm muted, I apologise. I think you'd rather hear me not coughing. But the show must go on. So, today we have Dokken and Damn Freaks. Now, put them head to head. Unusual mesh up this one. Well, not unusual in their style of music, because Damn Freaks was a submission. Their album Damn Freaks was actually released in July of this year, so we're a few months behind, but it's still in this year, so that's absolutely fine. And they asked us to review their album, and when we read a little bit biography, which I now can't find my notes, but they had support from Dokken in terms of their development, etc. So it was obvious. Let's put them up against Dokken and see who's going to come out on top here. Will it be the Masters or the Apprentices? Who knows? And I apologise if I've got that wrong. Anyway, let's crack on then. So Dokken, Dave, let's start with you then for a bit of Dokken, shall we?
Yeah, so I mean, it's it's a strong sort of 80s style rock. There's good musicianship, vocals throughout. But my problem with it is it never really elevates above anything more than just sort of average, really. I mean, there's good songs throughout, but there's nothing standout. There's nothing here that I would go, right, that's a single, that's the standout track, that's the sort of thing that's going to make your playlist. It was just average throughout. I mean, I didn't dislike it, but, it's easily forgettable at the same time. So, I mean, yeah, it's one that I could quite happily listen to again, but I don't think it's one that I would seek out to listen to, that's for sure.
Do apologise for that. Do apologise for that, ladies and gentlemen. There was something happening that I had to take care of. Okay, Ian, what did you think, Dokken?
I agree with Dave, to be honest. I thought it stood out a little bit more for me in terms of a couple of the tracks. But I thought, Dokken are one of those bands you always see headline, but you're not entirely sure what they do unless you've listened to them. It's like, you get a band like Metallica or someone like that. There's what the big history of theirs is. Dokken, you're not so familiar. You know the name, but unless you've seen them, you're not really familiar. And Heaven Came Down, I thought, was a really good album. I really liked it. But I agree with Dave. There were two tracks that did stand out. I'm going to completely contradict myself here and say that there were two that really stood out, but the rest was just meh. But good meh. The ones that stood out were I'll Never Give Up. I thought, if you love ballads, this is a fantastic ballad, and what a guitar solo in it. If you like a good guitar solo, definitely listen to this. If you like a good ballad, really good. I liked Over the Mountain for storytelling, but I thought Santa Fe had a beautiful acoustic feel to it. I mean, it was acoustically played, but not entirely, but just rolls beautifully. And that, for me, says who Dokken are. They vary up enough. Everything feels like it's the right collection, but it's never go further than, do you know what? I'll stick Dokken on. I need something on my headphones in the background. I'm happy to stick Dokken on. You would choose that as opposed to some bands of similar ilk that would, when they come on, you're like, no, I'll leave it on. But you perhaps would choose Dokken, but you wouldn't go to it for a big main name album. So good, honest Dokken is what I think.
Now, talking about good and honest, Chris?
Oh, the facade still works. Excellent. So I kind of have to echo Dave and Ian here. So Dokken, it's classic rock. It's 80s sort of rock. You've got the athletic guitars, as I call it, where you playing around on the strings. You've got your decent sound, decent music, drums, and all that sort of stuff. The thing that got me with Dokken more than anything was that if you listen to the lyrics and the way that he's singing more than the lyrics themselves, it's not that he's not committed, but he could wake himself up a bit, if you see what I mean. And which is where things like Santa Fe and which was the other one that I put down, I think Over the Mountain as well, seems to do that a little bit more. He's just a bit more committed to the song that he's singing rather than just singing it for the sake of making the album, if you see what I mean. I don't mean that to sound as harsh as it actually does when I say it, because it is like as Ian said, you would choose to put Dokken on. I do kind of fit this into the same sort of boat as things like there's a few parallels here with things like Bon Jovi and those sorts of groups, which people don't like to admit that they sometimes listen to Bon Jovi, whereas you're quite happy to admit that sometimes you listen to Dokken. And yeah, it's a middle of the road album. It's one of those ones that you can, if you need something on in the background, if you happen to be driving and you play Dokken, you won't get yourself either amped up or annoyed at the people around you, because it's just plain level sailing, smooth classic rock. So yeah, good, not great.
Okay, now somebody that we could never describe as middle of the road, Trish.
Okay. I know I keep banging on about opening tracks on albums and how important it is for me. Well, with Fugitive being the one for this album, it is no fugitive. It's right there in your face saying, I'm here, listen to me. And I sure as hell am. It's followed with the track Gypsy that had my toe tapping and seat dancing in my chair at work. My favourite tracks were Just Like a Rose with its catchy chorus and its glorious guitar riffs, and, well, Santa Fe, I don't need to say any more. These guys know what they're doing, delivering a tasty morsel of rock heaven for this rock chick.
The problem with Dokken that makes them stand out is their lead singer's vocals, which then puts him into the bracket you were going to talk about, because he doesn't scream. He doesn't hit those screamy top kind of vocals, which, let's be honest about it, is incredibly saturated right now. Everybody that comes into this classic rock scene has to be screeching and hitting those kind of 80s kind of Bon Jovi kind of notes. This guy doesn't do that, which then, as I say, puts him into that smooth kind of classic round. And I think sometimes less is more. And I think with this guy, with the lead singer whose name escapes me because I've got a head cold and I haven't got my notes, I apologise, is brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant and sets him different to every other band that's coming out there trying to play in this space. And I think you've got to be kind of different. I liken them to Tigers of Panyang, and in that sort of genre. I loved it. I thought it was so smooth. It's a smooth classic rock feel, and I think it sets him out. But I get the comments, because less is more. It can get a little bit, well, there's going to be background kind of tunes, but I will say, instrumentally and technically, I think some of the music in there is absolutely first class. Top rate album, top rate in this space. Really liked it, really enjoyed it. But again, for me, I don't think any of the songs actually made it to my playlist. But I loved the album. I just loved that album. But anyway, there we go. So let's talk about the Prodigies then, Damn Freaks, and their album Damn Freaks. So is the album called Damn Freaks, or is it 3? For some reason it's called 3. My apologies. So yeah, 3, and you're all on mute. There we go. So Ian, let's start with you then. Did you like a bit of Damn Freaks? Because let's face it, you are a bit of a damn freak yourself. So let's crack on.
I am a damn freak twice. If we're talking about 3, let's go to 6. Always, there we are. I've managed to get it in again. Yeah, brilliant. Good, honest LA rock. It's got that LA rock feel. The distorted guitar, the heavy bass, the drums. Whereas, obviously, these are a battle, so I'm going to draw a line directly between these two because I think it's a great example. Whereas Dokken, I think you hit the nail on the head there, Nigel. They just strip it back, and perhaps we're overthinking it in a degree. It made me think perhaps I'm overthinking. I'm looking for more than what is actually there. But I think my score's gonna tell a story anyway. Whereas this is where just all tracks sound similar, and it's okay if you like that. But again, we've hit saturation point with this sound. If I want to listen to Motley Crue, I'll listen to Motley Crue. If it's that type of LA feel. I did really like the ballad. Weirdly, I thought it was really well written, good lyrics, and a beautiful melody to it. There's just that was really stood out, but the rest of it was just good, honest LA rock, but nothing special. Just everything sounded a bit similar, to be honest with you. Yeah.
So now let's talk to someone special. Let's go to Chris, and
I'm going to choose to say thanks, mate, and hope that was the way you meant it.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think it's kind of ties together a few of the things we said. So first off, I really like this. This was a lot more for me in terms of 3 is where I want it to be for the sort of the classic rock scene. So if you direct comparison with Dokken, where I was saying that it doesn't feel like he's that connected, he's that emotional about what he's singing. And I get what you're saying about, you can go too far the other way where you become too committed to it. And I think actually Damn Freaks hits it right in the middle. I can feel like they are connected to what they're singing about, but they're not pushing themselves too much. In fact, one of the things I actually wrote was that there's a relaxed nature to the lyrics and the way that they're singing, even though there are occasions where they go for it. I think Where Is Love was the ballad that you mentioned, Ian. The guitar solo in that was fantastic. And there's that little bit more. I can kind of see that, I didn't realise when I was listening that there was a connection between Dokken helping out Dan Freaks and basically mentoring him. But I can kind of see that when it's mentioned. But I think Freaks have just gone that bit further with it. If they want to go that bit more with the emotion to their lyrics, then definitely that's what I'm looking at. And yeah, Dan Freaks has made it into my playlist for I'm going to listen to these again. And I need to go back into the back catalogue and find out the rest of it too. So, yeah, I really like this.
Trish?
Come on, Nigel.
Hello.
Trish!
I did just exactly the same thing.
I mean,
God almighty.
come on! Mute City!
God, I know, right? Okay. This album hits you with hard, solid, hard rock from the start. And this does exactly what I want it to do. A good solid rock that has your head nodding and toe tapping along. It's enjoyable, and without noticing, you're at the end of the album ready to hit play again. My favourite track on the album was Crazy Ride. It took me back to the good old 80s rock era. A fine job of an album.
Dave, bit of classic rock for you, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, normally I would sort of be ranting and raving about this sort of album, but I don't know, this just didn't do it for me. I don't know really why either, to be honest. There's some really good guitar work in there, which I really like. It's sort of fairly well written throughout. I think, actually, interestingly enough, Nigel, with the other one, you mentioned the vocals. I think that might be what my biggest problem is. As soon as I heard the vocals again, it's like, it's that high-pitched kind of, at times a bit screamy, sort of bit Bruce Dickinson sort of esque, and it's just like it's overdone now. It's like every sort of band of that sort of genre tend to do that, and it's starting to get a bit old now. There was nothing that really sort of stood out for me. I mean, I could listen to this if someone put it on. I wouldn't complain. It'd be enjoyable enough, but I'm definitely not going to sort of seek it out. That's for sure.
For me, this is an album with two halves. I think the first half was incredibly generic, and I agree with Dave. I've heard it all before. I mean, there's a lot of bands out there saying that they're out there evangelising and saving classic rock. Well, you had about 100 bands are doing the same thing, right? And that high-pitched kind of classic rock kind of stuff is saturated. And I think the first half of this album was pretty much, I've heard it all before, all year. I've heard lots of it, and I've heard the same thing, and it didn't really stand out. And I'm interested if the influence of Dokken in the second half of the album kicked in, because I then thought in the second half of the album that it rescued it a bit. I think the ballad was fantastic. I think they varied it up a lot more. They changed the tempo. I'd say first 4 songs out there. Let's see if I can hit the big notes like classic rock kind of thing. 'Cause that's what I have to do. And I think that actually the first half was all right. Second half much better. Thoroughly enjoyed the second half of the album, and that was kind of that really. So well done, good album. Just vary it up a little bit more, and as I say, sometimes less is more. Try and vary it up. And you liken things to like Bon Jovi, what the Bon Jovi did in the 80s, right? And love or hate Bon Jovi, their mixture of songs was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal, and their variation in their songs was phenomenal, and that's the standout of people like Bon Jovi back in the 80s when you look at it, Anyway, so let's find out scores then, shall we, everybody? So Dave, Dokken.
I'll give it a 3.
Ian.
I gave it 4.5.
And Chris. You're on mute, Chris. Again, Chris.
3.5.
Trish.
4.
4 from me as well. So 8, 11, 14.5. Oh, 19. Just outside a Hall of Fame.
Oh.
Just outside. Good album, though. I mean, for a classic rock album, that's pretty darn good. I think that might have beaten Tiger the Panyang, I'm not sure, really, but it's going to be close. But in terms of our classic rock scene albums, it's a really good score. Well done, Dokken. Okay, let's find out Damn Freaks then. Dave?
2.5, about as middle as the road as it can come.
Ian?
I think Ties with Panyang got 18, I think, from memory.
Okay.
Yeah, 18 and a half. And I gave Damn Freaks 3.
3. Chris?
4.
4. And well done, Chris, for not being on mute this time. Well done. You're getting better. Well done. Well done, Chris.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
well, a conversation between two massive culprits.
Yeah, but I've got a reason I have to mute because I'm spluttering and snorting everywhere, and that's not cocaine. That's a cold, by the way. I know I'm not hardcore rock and roll. Trish?
You just wandered into a reason this week, that's all.
No, all right. Trish?
4.
4. Well, it had to be 3 from 3. So it's a 3 for the 3. What can I say from me? So 7, 9.5, 9.5, 12.5, 16.5. That's still a really good score. I mean, it's a really good score because sometimes we can be quite brutal. So it's a solid album. Trish, who are you going to buy?
Damn Freaks.
Damn Freaks, okay. So I would buy Dokken, Trish would buy Damn Freaks, Dave would buy Dokken, Chris would buy Damn Freaks, Ian would buy Dokken, so they win the battle by 3-2. So that's really close. So well done, Damn Freaks. I think you've won a couple of fans there, for sure. So which is never a bad thing. Anyway, if you like what you listen to, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Please leave your comments. Do you agree with us? Check it out, keep on rocking, keep on listening, and thanks to my crew, to Dave, to Trish, to Chris, and to Ian. Goodbye, God bless, and all the best out there, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Keep on rocking.